You're locked back in with me, and tonight the tea isn't just hot, it's boiling over the pot, running down the counter, and setting the whole kitchen on fire. Because what I am about to walk you through is arguably the most cinematic, most unhinged, most jaw-loosening chapter in the entire Blueface and Nevaeh Akira saga, and I need you to buckle in because we're not doing surface level tonight. We are going frame by frame, grin by grin, receipt by receipt, until every single person watching this understands exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. Blueface has done a lot of things on livestream in his career. He has argued with mothers. He has argued with exes. He has argued with strangers on the sidewalks of Los Angeles. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared the internet for what happened when Blueface walked back into his own home after a full weekend in San Diego with Chrisean Rock, only to find his heavily pregnant girlfriend Nevaeh Akira kneeling in front of a lit altar performing what an entire generation of viewers is now openly calling a full-blown ritual. And if you think that sentence sounds dramatic, wait until you hear how Blueface reacted. Let me back this whole thing up, because context is the difference between a scandal and a spectacle, and this is very much a spectacle. Blueface had spent the entire weekend out of town with his ex Chrisean Rock and their son, Chrisean Jr. That trip alone would have been enough to detonate any conversation, because Blueface has spent months, publicly and repeatedly, questioning whether Chrisean Jr. is even biologically his. So the optics of Blueface hopping on a plane, flying to San Diego, and playing family with the same child he was denying on stream just weeks earlier, that alone had the timeline in an uproar. Now imagine being Nevaeh. Imagine being 8 months pregnant, watching your partner post family photos with his ex and the child he doesn't even claim, and being told that everything is fine, that it's just a friendly visit, that you should trust the process. Nevaeh didn't buy it. Nevaeh has never bought it. And Nevaeh went on her own livestream and made it painfully, transparently clear that she was not okay with any part of this arrangement. Then Blueface came home. And that is where the timeline shifted from suspicion into full documented warfare. Because on stream, in front of tens of thousands of viewers, Blueface openly confirmed that he had been intimate with Chrisean Rock during the trip. He didn't dance around it. He didn't hedge it. He said it out loud, on camera, while Nevaeh, pregnant, exhausted, and standing 3 feet away, had to absorb every syllable in real time. And Nevaeh hit him with the one line that broke the whole comment section wide open. She looked at Blueface and asked, plainly, why he was apologizing for something he had clearly, deliberately, and repeatedly decided to do. And that one question, is the reason this clip has been re-uploaded across every corner of the internet since it happened, because it exposes the entire manipulation architecture of the relationship. You don't apologize for accidents. You apologize for exposures. And Blueface wasn't sorry. He was caught. There is a difference. But sister, this is where the story stops being a domestic argument and starts becoming a masterclass in public humiliation. Because Blueface didn't stop at confirming the cheating. He didn't stop at defending Chrisean Rock. He didn't stop at telling Nevaeh she should just accept it. Blueface then turned around and started attacking Nevaeh's career, her financial stability, and her sense of self-worth on live camera. He reportedly told Nevaeh that she only earns $12,000 a month because she works for him. He weaponized her paycheck as if income were leverage in a relationship. And Blueface said this while Nevaeh, pregnant, hormonal, and days from delivery, was standing in his kitchen trying to hold what was left of her dignity together. The internet noticed instantly. Because no matter who signs the checks in a household, the moment you start pulling out receipts in the middle of an emotional confrontation, you have already lost every ounce of moral standing in that room. And Blueface lost his the second the words left his mouth. There is no coming back from that line. Now let me remind you what stage of pregnancy Nevaeh is currently in, because it is important, and it is genuinely unthinkable when you sit with it. Nevaeh's due date is reportedly the 24th of August. That is not months away. That is days away. She is in the final stretch. She is in the countdown window. She is at the point in pregnancy where a woman is supposed to be surrounded by peace, warmth, ginger tea, folded onesies, and a partner who behaves like a partner. Nevaeh is instead being belittled on livestream, cheated on across state lines, and forced to defend her own worth in front of hundreds of thousands of strangers. It's unthinkable. Genuinely unthinkable. And that is why the entire timeline began saying the same thing in unison. Sister, close the laptop, shut the door, breathe your own air, and get somewhere safe before that baby arrives. Nevaeh also, and this is a detail nobody is talking about enough, had to check Blueface when the conversation on stream started drifting into sexually explicit territory in front of her older son, Superior. That is a child. That is a young, impressionable child sitting in the same room, hearing his mother's partner speak with vulgarity about intimate matters as if there were no minors present. Nevaeh had to intervene. Nevaeh had to remind Blueface that a child was in the space. And Blueface's response was to double down, to keep the tone crude, to keep the disrespect flowing. That single moment right there, that intervention on behalf of her son, is what convinced a huge swath of viewers that Nevaeh, at her core, is still trying to parent responsibly inside a home where the man she chose refuses to grow up alongside her. This is the exact fork in the road where the whole timeline split. Because as soon as this footage began circulating, the internet fractured into 3 distinct camps, and every one of those camps has been fighting each other in the comments ever since. Camp 1 is the sisterhood camp, the viewers demanding that Nevaeh leave the relationship immediately, pack her belongings, and protect the peace of the child she's about to bring into the world. Camp 2 is the harder love camp, the viewers arguing that Nevaeh knew exactly what kind of man Blueface was before she agreed to have a child with him, and that she is now living inside a story she chose. Camp 3 is the cynical veteran camp, the viewers who have watched Blueface run this exact same cycle with Chrisean Rock and Jaden before, and who are convinced Nevaeh is not going anywhere because Blueface has perfected the choreography of the makeup routine. And what do you think Blueface pulled out this time to smooth it over? A Cartier watch. Sacrilege. Absolute sacrilege. A luxury timepiece deployed like a reset button after a public admission of cheating and a live-streamed attack on the mother of his unborn child. And the internet, correctly, refused to accept the bribe on Nevaeh's behalf. Now, to be clear, because I am nothing if not fair on this channel, a Cartier watch is a beautiful gift. It is an expensive, thoughtful, considered piece of jewelry that would delight almost anybody who received it under different circumstances. But after everything Blueface said, after everything Blueface admitted, after everything Blueface did on stream in front of Nevaeh's own son, a watch is not an apology. A watch is an insult wrapped in leather and gold. And every single commentator on the timeline recognized it for exactly what it was, a distraction, a pattern, a familiar move from a familiar playbook. Because critics have been openly predicting the exact next chapter of this cycle since the second the clip dropped. Explosive argument. Extravagant gift. Public reconciliation. Silence for 6 weeks. And then the next scandal, larger than the last one, right back on our feeds. It's not paranoia. It's pattern recognition. And Blueface has run this playbook so many times he could sell it as a masterclass. But before we go any further, we need to talk about what actually happened when Blueface first walked into that house, because this is where the story crosses from ordinary infidelity drama into full-scale internet mythology. Blueface, after his weekend with Chrisean Rock, opened the front door of his home to find Nevaeh Akira kneeling in front of a fully constructed altar. Candles. Symbols. Offerings. A shrine. And the entire livestream chat lost its collective mind in real time. Some viewers were laughing. Some viewers were horrified. Some viewers were quoting scripture. And Blueface himself, the man who has publicly claimed to be spiritually protected, the man who has quoted prayers on stream more than once, froze in place, stepped backwards, and began cracking uncomfortable jokes about voodoo soup and pine-scented candles. Because he did not know what to do. He did not know what he had walked into. And frankly, neither did the rest of us. Now Nevaeh has previously denied practicing anything of this nature. She has laughed off the accusations for weeks. But on this particular night, on this particular stream, in this particular corner of the house, there was no denying what the camera was showing. There was an altar. There were candles. There were arrangements. And Nevaeh, when confronted about it, calmly explained that she was praying, that whatever she had constructed was for good energy, for protection, for peace during the final weeks of her pregnancy. She said she wasn't doing anything sinister. She said the altar was hers, that nobody should touch it, that it was blessed. And the internet, being the internet, immediately began debating whether her explanation was reassuring or unsettling. Because when your pregnant girlfriend builds a private altar the same weekend her partner disappears to another city with his ex, the timing alone becomes its own commentary. Blueface's response to the altar was, in a word, cinematic. He recoiled. He edged toward the door. He announced, on stream, that he was leaving with his friend Jonathan, and yelled that he was not about to be left alone in the house with what he kept calling the voodoo lady. It was scripted like a sitcom cold open, but it wasn't scripted. It was real. And it revealed something that Blueface has never truly acknowledged before, which is that Blueface, at the deepest layer of his personality, is genuinely superstitious. He has previously joked that Nevaeh must have used voodoo on him because he woke up one day and unexpectedly found himself in love with her. He has previously refused to eat her soup, calling it chicken voodoo soup, because he could not rationalize how strongly he was falling for a woman he did not think he would ever commit to. And now, standing 3 feet away from an actual altar, all of those old jokes suddenly stopped being jokes. Because what if the joke had been the tell the whole time? But I need to pull us back to Nevaeh for a moment, because the emotional center of the story is not the altar. It is not the Cartier watch. It is not the voodoo. It is her. Nevaeh is a woman who is heavily, visibly, urgently pregnant. Nevaeh is a woman who is being disrespected on camera by a partner who is openly seeing his ex on the side. Nevaeh is a woman who is being told, by that same partner, that her financial worth is measured against his paycheck. Nevaeh is a woman being asked to accept the unacceptable in the most publicly documented way any modern relationship has ever been documented. And Nevaeh, to her enormous credit, has not folded. She has pushed back. She has questioned Blueface directly. She has refused to laugh along when the disrespect crossed the line into humiliation. She has protected her son. She has stood on her own name. And she has made it clear, in her own quiet way, that she sees exactly what is happening, even if she is not yet ready to act on it. That is the tragedy inside this tragedy. Nevaeh sees the whole picture. Nevaeh understands the whole pattern. Nevaeh knows exactly who Blueface is. And Nevaeh is still there, at the altar, praying for a version of him that may never exist. Let me sit across from you and say this softly, Nevaeh. What about Blueface, at any point in the entire arc of his public romantic history, made you believe he would treat you differently than every woman who came before you? I'm asking with love. I'm asking with sincerity. I'm asking because I need you to hear this. We watched what happened with Chrisean Rock during her pregnancy. We watched what happened with Jaden during hers. We watched Blueface deny children, mock partners on camera, argue with mothers in parking lots, and pivot from woman to woman as if none of them held any real weight in his internal ledger. And now here you are, sister, kneeling in front of an altar, hoping that spiritual intervention will do the work that his character refuses to do. It's unthinkable. And it's heartbreaking. Because you deserve so much more than an unanswered prayer whispered into a shrine in a house where the man you love is on the phone with his ex. Now, the internet, being what the internet is, has been drawing extremely uncomfortable comparisons between Nevaeh's current situation and Chrisean Rock's past pregnancies. And I have to be honest with you, the comparisons hold up under scrutiny. During Chrisean Rock's pregnancy, Blueface was on tour, in clubs, and in headlines for reasons that had nothing to do with fatherhood. During Jaden's earlier phase of the arc, Blueface was equally distracted, equally unavailable, equally consumed with anyone but the woman carrying life inside her. And now, during Nevaeh's pregnancy, Blueface is flying to San Diego, spending weekends with Chrisean Rock, and returning home to belittle Nevaeh on livestream over paychecks. There is a pattern here. There is a shape to this behavior. And every woman who has stepped into this pattern has walked out of it more bruised than she stepped in. Nevaeh, sister, you don't have to be the 4th chapter of the same book. You can choose to be the woman who read the earlier chapters and closed the cover before her name became a warning to somebody else. But this is where the story takes another sharp turn, because this is where Blueface's own words on stream, from the very same night, begin painting an even darker picture than the altar or the argument. Blueface, in the middle of the confrontation, tells Nevaeh, I want you to hear this exactly the way he said it, that when he comes home from wherever he's been, she needs to be nice, she needs to greet him, she needs to kiss him, she needs to welcome him. Not because he earned it. Not because he behaved. But because he demanded it. Blueface actually said that Nevaeh's attitude was, in his own words, the attitude of a woman who does not know that her man is with another woman, as if the fact that Nevaeh does know somehow makes her the unreasonable one. As if being informed about betrayal was the greater sin than committing it. And then he uttered the line that has since been screenshotted, replayed, and dissected across every commentary channel that covers this story. He said, and I quote him only because his own voice does the damage for me, that he is a delusional woman's worst nightmare, because all he does is look them in the face and tell them the truth. School credit. Ponder on that. Except, and this is the part that undoes the entire monologue, Blueface is not telling the truth. Blueface is telling a version of the truth that centers his own comfort. Blueface is telling the truth about the cheating, yes, but he is refusing to tell the truth about the emotional damage, the disrespect, the pregnancy timing, the child in the room, the audience watching, the pattern he keeps repeating, and the woman he keeps breaking. That is not honesty. That is confession without contrition. That is disclosure without responsibility. And Nevaeh, standing across from him with a full belly and full eyes, understood exactly what he was doing. She looked at him. She listened to him. And she asked the question that every viewer in the chat was silently begging her to ask. Why should she absorb his behavior when he returned home, when he had spent his weekend elsewhere, when he had made his choices without her? Why was she the one being asked to soften? Why was he not the one being asked to grow up? The internet, unsurprisingly, went nuclear. Timelines flooded. Screenshots multiplied. Commentators piled on. Every corner of the platform lit up with commentary about Blueface, Nevaeh, Chrisean, and the whole tangled architecture of this relationship. And within hours, a new debate emerged, one that I think matters more than any of the individual arguments about who did what. The debate is this: at what point does the audience stop blaming the man and start questioning the woman who keeps entering the same door? Because there is a growing school of thought, one that Nevaeh's own supporters are increasingly uncomfortable with, that argues Blueface has been transparent about who he is from the very first day of his public life. He has never hidden it. He has never pretended. He has streamed his infidelities, his arguments, his exes, his chaos. And the women who step into his orbit, the argument goes, are not being deceived. They're choosing. And this framing, uncomfortable as it is, has been gaining traction, not because anyone believes Blueface is innocent, but because everyone is tired of watching new women repeat old mistakes on a schedule. But sister, let me push back on that argument gently. Because while it is true that Blueface is publicly, spectacularly unfiltered, it is also true that manipulation is not made less real by being visible. It is also true that emotional attachment does not evaporate simply because a partner is honest about being dishonest. It is also true that pregnancy hormones, financial dependency, isolation, and public spectacle are exactly the conditions under which women become trapped inside relationships they know are wrong. So no, Nevaeh is not stupid. Nevaeh is not naive. Nevaeh is a young woman navigating an extraordinarily complex emotional situation with the entire internet watching her every choice in real time. And the appropriate response from us, as an audience, is not to mock her. It is to make sure that when she is finally ready to walk out, she has somewhere to walk to. Because a woman in her third trimester doesn't need a comment section full of judgment. She needs a runway. She needs a landing pad. She needs somebody outside of Blueface's world holding a door open for her without a camera pointed at it. Now let me pivot for a moment to Blueface's own defenders, because they exist too, and I want to make sure we cover them fairly. Blueface supporters argue that he has been more emotionally present with Nevaeh than he was with any prior partner. They point to the streams where Blueface has been affectionate, playful, and even romantic. They point to the shopping trips, the shared meals, the on-camera laughter. They argue that the moments of tenderness between Blueface and Nevaeh, the moments when he holds her, jokes with her, orders her food, calls her his girlfriend on stream, are not performances, but genuine flashes of a bond that is more real than the internet gives it credit for. And I hear that argument. I do. But sister, tenderness is not sufficient. Tenderness in the daytime does not erase betrayal in the nighttime. Warm meals do not cancel cold accusations. A Cartier watch does not undo an admission of cheating with an ex during your final trimester. Love, if it is real love, must be verified by consistency, not by highlight reels. And Blueface, unfortunately for Nevaeh, has never been a consistent man in his entire public life. And this brings me back to the altar. Because the altar, I think, is the most misunderstood image in this entire saga. The altar is not a joke. The altar is not a punchline. The altar is a young pregnant woman, alone in a house, praying for a relationship that she can see slipping through her fingers even as she carries the child that is supposed to bind it together. That is not comedic. That is tragic. And when Blueface reacted to that altar with performed disgust, when he yelled about voodoo, when he ran out of the house, when he laughed with his friend on livestream while Nevaeh stood by her shrine in silence, Blueface didn't just disrespect his girlfriend. He disrespected a spiritual practice, a private prayer, and a woman's attempt to protect what remained of her peace. And the fact that he did it on livestream, in front of hundreds of thousands of people, is the ugliest layer of this entire story. Because let's be honest with each other. Nevaeh is not the villain here. Nevaeh is not the caricature the algorithm keeps trying to paint. Nevaeh is a woman who fell for a public figure, moved into his world, adjusted her career around his brand, carried his child in her body, and is now standing in his kitchen watching him defend an ex on the same night he brought her a designer watch. And the entire internet is treating her like an object of debate rather than a human being with a due date on her calendar. That is the part that keeps me up at night about this story. Not the drama. Not the ratings. Not the live stream views. But the fact that a real woman with a real pregnancy is being ground into content for our consumption, and none of us, including me, honestly, are entirely clean of that dynamic. Let me return to the confrontation itself, because there are details that have not yet been fully surfaced. During the argument, Blueface repeatedly attempted to reframe the entire conversation as if Nevaeh were the one behaving unreasonably. He accused her of being cold. He accused her of being distant. He accused her of not welcoming him properly upon his return. He suggested, and I want you to sit with this, that a normal partner would have kissed him at the door and cooked him a warm meal after his weekend away with another woman. Blueface honestly believes, or claims to believe, that a well-adjusted girlfriend would greet him with affection after he confessed to infidelity. That is not a boundary issue. That is a reality perception issue. And Nevaeh, to her credit, did not agree to that framing. She pushed back. She said what she needed to say. She refused to pretend the weekend hadn't happened. And she demanded quietly but clearly that Blueface acknowledge the impact of his choices on the household he claims to want. And there is another layer I have to add, because it clarifies the emotional stakes. During the same stream, Nevaeh admitted openly that she and Blueface have not been physically intimate in a significant period of time. Blueface's excuse, according to the footage, is that Nevaeh's pregnancy makes her body less appealing to him. Read that back. Read that back slowly. Blueface, on livestream, in front of the world, essentially confirmed that the reason he has been physically distant from the mother of his unborn child is because pregnancy has changed her body in ways he does not find attractive. That is not a partner. That is not a father. That is a man who never emotionally signed up for the responsibility he verbally accepted the day the pregnancy test came back positive. And Nevaeh, hearing this on stream, did what any woman with any remaining self-respect would do. She looked at him. She swallowed the insult. And she kept going, because at 8 months pregnant, there is nowhere else to go in that moment. And this is why the meta loop of the story remains open. Because we still do not know what Nevaeh is going to do next. We do not know if the Cartier watch actually reset the argument or simply postponed it. We do not know if Nevaeh has already begun preparing to leave, quietly, in the way that women often prepare to leave one bag at a time, one phone call at a time, one small decision at a time until the day comes when the door closes for the last time. We do not know if Nevaeh is going to give birth in that house, in a hospital, in her apartment, or somewhere else entirely. We do not know if Blueface's mother, Carlisa, is going to intervene, because Carlisa has reportedly voiced serious concerns about the altar and about the state of the relationship in general. And we do not know, most critically of all, what happens the first time the newborn cries in the middle of the night in a home where the father is not psychologically prepared for fatherhood. That question, that one question, is the one that keeps every longtime viewer of this saga awake tonight. But here is what we do know. We know that Blueface, on the night of the argument, called Nevaeh names that are too crude for me to repeat on this channel. We know that Blueface said things about Nevaeh's body, her intelligence, her dependence, and her worth that will follow him around forever, because the internet does not forget. We know that Nevaeh maintained her composure even as her tears fell in real time on camera. We know that Blueface eventually softened, offered the watch, took her out to eat, brought her back into the fold, and that the entire cycle appeared to reset by morning. And we know, as the veteran observer camp has been saying all along, that the next explosion is not a question of if. It is a question of when. And how loud. And how public. And how close to labor. Blueface is not going to change between now and the 24th. Blueface is not going to wake up one morning transformed. Blueface is who he has always been. And Nevaeh, whether she is ready to admit it out loud or not, already knows it. Let me also address the sub-conversation that has been circulating in some corners of the commentary space, the corner that keeps asking, with a kind of exhausted honesty, whether the women who enter Blueface orbit share responsibility for the outcomes they experience. And I want to be measured here, because this is delicate ground. Yes, Blueface's public record is transparent. Yes, Every woman who has stepped into a relationship with Blueface has done so with access to years of documented behavior. Yes, at some point, personal accountability enters the picture because adults choose partners with open eyes. But, and this is important, the fact that a man is publicly, transparently harmful does not shift the moral responsibility for his harm onto the women he harms. Transparency of misconduct is not consent to misconduct. Blueface being loud about who he is does not obligate a woman to accept who he is. And the argument that Nevaeh should have known better, while structurally true, becomes cruel the moment it is deployed against a pregnant woman navigating public humiliation in real time. Now let me pivot to something the timeline has been circling, but not fully naming, because I think it deserves direct acknowledgement. There is a psychological phenomenon at work in relationships like this one that behavioral researchers describe as intermittent reinforcement. A pattern where affection and cruelty are alternated so unpredictably that the partner on the receiving end becomes emotionally addicted to the chase for the next moment of tenderness. Blueface playbook is, whether he understands it or not, a textbook example of that pattern. Weekend in San Diego. Public confession. Verbal attack. Cartier watch. Dinner out. Wholesome stream the next day. And repeat. That is not love. That is not partnership. That is a psychological loop. And breaking a psychological loop from the inside, especially at 8 months pregnant with no immediate financial exit, is one of the hardest things a human being can do. So when we tell Nevaeh to leave, we have to also acknowledge how difficult leaving actually is from where she is standing. Now, before I close this out, I want to acknowledge the audience that has been showing up in the comments across every single video I have published on this couple, because your engagement matters and your instincts have been sharp. Some of you called this exact turn weeks ago. Some of you predicted the Chrisean Rock reunion before Blueface even boarded the plane to San Diego. Some of you identified the altar in earlier clips before anybody else caught it. And some of you, the softer voices in the crowd, have simply been praying for Nevaeh and her baby with a sincerity that I find genuinely moving. Whatever camp you fall into, I want you to know that your voice matters in this ongoing conversation, and I read every single comment on every single upload because you are the ones keeping the story honest. This isn't gossip. This is community journalism. And you are the community. So where does this leave us tonight? It leaves us at the edge of something that could go in any direction. Nevaeh could walk. Blueface could grow. Chrisean Rock could return. The baby could arrive. The altar could stay lit or go dark. The Cartier could stay on Nevaeh's wrist or find its way into a pawn shop by the end of the month. Nothing about this story is settled. Everything about it is combustible. And I promise you on my whole platform, that the moment the next update drops, the moment the next live stream goes live, the moment Nevaeh or Blueface or Chrisean or Carlisa or anybody adjacent to this story picks up a phone or opens a camera, we will be right here breaking it down, chapter by chapter, until this arc reaches whatever ending it is going to reach. And if that ending is joyful, we will celebrate it. And if that ending is painful, we will grieve it. And if that ending is complicated, which honestly it probably will be, we will sit with the complication together. Because at the center of all of this is a young woman about to have a baby. And whatever you believe about Blueface, whatever you believe about Nevaeh, whatever you believe about the choices they have made, a baby is coming. That baby did not sign up for the live stream. That baby did not consent to the platform. That baby will inherit whatever emotional inheritance these two adults leave behind. And my hope, my genuine hope, is that Nevaeh Akira finds the peace she was praying for at that altar, with Blueface, without Blueface, in whatever configuration protects the life she is bringing into the world. Because everything else, the watches, the arguments, the live stream views, the algorithm, everything else is temporary. The baby is not. The baby is forever. And every choice made in that house over the next few weeks is a choice that baby will one day, in some form, inherit. Now tell me, in the comments, exactly where you land. Are you Camp 1, telling Nevaeh to leave tonight before the baby arrives? Are you Camp 2, arguing that Nevaeh chose the door she walked through? Are you Camp 3, calling the entire cycle inevitable and just waiting for the next chapter to drop? Or are you a Camp 4 I haven't named yet, a hidden camp with a perspective the rest of us haven't considered? Because I read the comments. I mean that literally. I read them. And your voice shapes how I cover the next chapter of this story. So don't hold back. Don't soften. Don't self-edit. Say what you actually think, because the algorithm rewards honest conversation, and I reward it right back with more coverage the moment the next update lands. And if you have a spiritual perspective on the altar, Christian, ancestral, or otherwise, please share it respectfully, because I know a lot of you have been quietly wanting to weigh in on that side of the story and haven't found the right moment. This is the moment. One more thing before the outro, and this matters. The Blueface saga is not the only one on this channel. We are watching, in real time, an entire era of live-stream native celebrity relationships play out under conditions that no previous generation of famous couples has ever had to navigate. There is no privacy. There is no reset. There is no version of the story that stays inside the house. Every argument becomes a clip. Every clip becomes a headline. Every headline becomes a comment war. And the people at the center of the storm, Blueface, Nevaeh, Chrisean, Jaden, Carlisa, Jr., Superior, and the child on the way are all being shaped, in real time, by the emotional weather of an internet that never sleeps. Whatever your feelings about any of them, we should at least be honest about the environment they are operating inside. It would break stronger people than these. And we are watching it break some of them right now in slow motion, in high definition, in front of a live chat that keeps refreshing. If you made it to this point in the video, do me one small favor. Hit that like button. Drop your camp number in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because this story is not slowing down. Turn on the notification bell so you're the first one in the room when the next live stream ignites. And share this video with the friend in your life who has been watching Blueface and Nevaeh Akira from a distance and pretending they don't care, because we both know they care. We both know they're going to watch this whole video twice. And we both know this story is only going to get louder from here. I'll be right here documenting every move. I'll be right here reading every comment. And I'll be right here the exact second Nevaeh, Blueface, Chrisean Rock, or anybody in that orbit opens their mouth again. Because on this channel, we don't miss a chapter. We don't miss a live stream. And we absolutely do not miss a Cartier watch dropped in the middle of an infidelity confession, like a piece of stagecraft designed to end an argument the man was losing. Until the next update, protect your peace, watch your circle, keep the porch light on for the sisters who might be quietly planning their own exit tonight, and remember that every altar tells a story if you're brave enough to read it. Nevaeh Akira is not alone. Blueface is not invincible. Chrisean Rock is not the final chapter. This story is still being written, one live stream at a time, and I promise you we will be here for the next page, the next revelation, and the next unthinkable turn. See you in the next one.